Thank you, Karen. Yeah, we'll give folks a few more minutes to hop online here before we get started. So need to do some multitasking. Certainly go ahead and do that.
See my Uber driver's on there. Hey, Mary. Mary was prepared to come pick me up to get me to you all.
I was going to do my best. I got a big Tahoe. We could get you there.
Are you flying out tomorrow, George?
Well, so when I come back, typically if I try to make the most of my trip, we have our golf event in June. So my plan was to hit a couple people that have sponsored in the back and maybe do some cold calling on some sponsors for the event. And with school, and then I have meetings with the university, but with school being virtual on Tuesday, those things kind of changed the trip because I extended it till Friday. But I then last night or earlier yesterday, I changed it to leave on Wednesday. So I'm going to leave on Wednesday because things got kind of, messed up. And then I'll make it back out again, probably either in February or March, to handle, other business that I wanted to handle in person. So yeah,
Gotcha.
it'll be going back on Wednesday. Wednesday morning, I leave at 5 a.m.
Okay.
I'd rather go on the direct first flight I can get out just in case there's any issues, because there were issues coming in on Saturday, just like Oklahoma State had issues getting in on Saturday. I had issues as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
yeah,
you give a new definition to the word cold calling.
You know what? I like that, Kent.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, we got hit with a double dose with the snow and the blizzard and winds, and then just the severe cold. So, it's tolerable when you're just dealing with one of those variables, but
Yeah.
to have both at the same time, and just difficult. Yeah.
Well,
All
on
right.
your return, make sure you can put us on the agenda as a visitor, at least, if you're here on a Monday.
Yeah, I will make sure to do that because normally I do come in. I normally come in on Mondays, but coming in on a Sunday would work as well. Now that I know, done my research on actually what the Rotary is, now I know I want to be a part of this.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're happy to hear that. So, well, we are at noon, so we will go ahead and get started. And so, like we do for every Rotary meeting, we open with the Pledge of Allegiance. So, I'll go ahead and stand and recite, and just you can join me if you'd like. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We use this time to acknowledge anyone in our Rotary family that we should keep in our thoughts. And so I'll open the floor in just a minute if there's anyone in particular, Rotary family or extended family, but certainly want to have a moment of silence for the Marburger family in Perry. I'm not sure if you all heard, but on Sunday morning, the high school principal, Dan Marburger, who was shot over in the school shooting in Perry on January 4th, doing all he could to protect his students. He succumbed to his injuries and passed away. So certainly want to have a moment of silence for him. So let's take a moment and keep the Marburger family and the Perry community in our thoughts and prayers today. So take a moment. Okay, thank you. Any others in our Rotary family? Go ahead. Okay. Not hearing anything. So again, continue to keep the Perry community in mind. We've kind of had our. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Did we honor Wally Sanders last week?
I don't know that we did. We can. Do you want to say anything, Jeff?
Yeah, he passed a week ago, and they had his funeral last week. But Wally Sanders is a former member from out at Northridge or Northcrest.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Jeff. Yeah, let's take a moment for Wally and the Sanders family. So thank you. Excellent, excellent. Are there any others? I can only see a few people on my screen, so if you're motioning, I can't see you. So go ahead and just hop off of mute.
Mason, do you hear me? This is
Yes.
Stuart. Harold Pike's wife passed away recently. I think the funeral was, I believe, Saturday. So
Okay.
Thought I'd let you know that too. So
Yes, yeah. Thank you for speaking up, and certainly want to keep Harold and then the Pike family in our thoughts as well. Boy, a lot of difficult things happening out there for us to keep in mind, but certainly send your good wishes and thoughts. So yeah, a moment for the Pike family. Okay. Any others? Okay, hearing none. Next slide, Karen.
Is Louis back?
I am.
All
Karen,
right.
Karen, do you want me to go ahead?
Yep.
Mason?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, usually, we on Martin Luther King Day, when we meet in person, we have usually sung something. For example, lift every voice and sing. And I had planned to do something today if we were in person, but we're online, and so Karen and I talked about it, and what I thought I would do would be to just sing one verse of one of Martin Luther King's favorite hymns. Two of them were "There Is a Balm in Gilead" and "Lift Every Voice" and "Precious Lord, Take My Hand." So please stay muted, but sing along with me. I will sing just what's on your screen for "There Is a Balm in Gilead." There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Sometimes I feel discouraged and think my work's in vain. But then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul.
Well done, Louis. Thank you very much. That was beautiful. Appreciate you doing that online today. So thank you. Karen, next slide. All right. We'll continue to promote the textiles donations to the Overflow Thrift Store. Probably a little difficult to get out and about right now, but while you're stuck inside, go looking for something to do. Head on into the closet and find some of those articles of clothing that don't fit or maybe a little out of date, haven't worn in a while, and package them up. And when the weather gets a little bit nicer out, you can make a donation to the thrift store, and there'll be a dollar amount that those donations will go to the Bridge Home. And so please consider going into the closet and finding some clothes to donate. So Ames Rotary Scholarship applications are open. If you know a high school senior that's, I believe, going to be going to an in-state institution, please share this with them. And I think the form has been shared or can be shared via email to send that out if you know somebody, a student, or can communicate to the if you know somebody at the school district. Ames Gilbert, I know I already sent it along to the superintendent here down in Ballard, where I'm at. My kids go to school, but we'll make sure everybody has a copy of that. So, okay. All right. Well, I think I'll be handing the microphone over to Mr. Jeff Johnson. Is that right?
That's right.
To introduce our special guest speaker today. So, Jeff, take it away.
Well, I'm honored to have this opportunity to introduce George to some of you. And for those of you who know him, recognize that he's an awesome Iowa State alum. And just a little bit more about him. He is a native of Cleveland, Ohio. He spent 10 years in Iowa, part of that attending Iowa State University as a member of the Ames and Des Moines communities. But he's also the father and husband. He has 3 children. He lives currently in the Phoenix area. Most of you know where Surprise, Arizona is. I think when people say Surprise, Arizona, it's not a surprise. It's a huge community. He started his career at Nationwide Insurance over 17 years ago and is currently in their property and casualty division. He holds a bachelor's in marketing from Iowa State and a master's in marketing from Grand Canyon University, which is located in Phoenix. He is certified in diversity, equity, and inclusion from Cornell University. George has been a mentor and a coach at different levels, inside and outside of his day job, and has been a sports coach for his children's ages 3 to 11 for many years. 3 years ago, with his passion for helping others and social justice at the forefront of our country, he started the Trice Legacy Foundation. In his time as executive director of the Trice Foundation, 3 college scholarships and multiple technology grants have been awarded to deserving students who are creating and building their own legacies. He is finishing the path of his cousin, John Jack Trice, by putting community, family, and education at the forefront and starting by giving back to Iowa. The foundation is currently connected to the chambers in Ames, Des Moines, and Cedar Rapids, with a few others lined up for the future. By being a part of these communities and more, the dream of his cousin and doing more than their part is becoming a reality. I also wanted to add that George is a ISU Foundation donor. He's also an ISU Alumni Association annual member. He has also served as our alumni club volunteer in the Phoenix area and other parts of the country. He served on the Jack Trice Centennial Legacy Committee that was responsible for all of the programming that was done for Jack Trice's 100th anniversary. And he is an avid ISU sports fan. So please join me in welcoming to today's Rotary, George Wesley Trice.
Hey, everybody. How are you all doing today? I'm glad to be here. I know it's different than you normally do because we're virtual. I'm sitting at the Courtyard Marriott down here, staying a little warm. It's been a little journey to get here. But I did want to talk about a couple things. I did not know what to expect. I did not know what I was going to really talk about, or what was going to be asked of me. And I'm speaking tonight. I'm the keynote for the City of Ames Story County MLK event tonight at 6:30 as well. Have a different speech, and that one's called The Path. Um, and this one today for you all, I'm going to take some pieces from both of them, but it's called Driven, Not Brave. But the one thing I want to start off with this story, I want to talk about today. Today is a significant day because we honor Martin Luther King Jr. Today is his birthday. He was born on the 15th. This day is really hard for me. I hope I don't get emotional right now, but this day is the 9th anniversary of my grandfather's death. My grandfather died on January 15th. And so this day has that significant meaning. And one of the reasons is because, as Jeff said, my name is George Wesley Trice, but I haven't always been George Wesley Trice. My name when I was born was Cleve George Trice, Cleve from Cleveland. I did not want to keep that name. And so as I looked at, people we admire and things like that, when I was 9, I decided that I wanted to change my name. And what better way to honor somebody would be to take their name. And so my grandfather's name is George, and that was my middle name. But when I was 9, I took his full name of George Wesley Trice. And so I bring that up because my grandfather started paving paths for me. He was a business owner. We owned an aquarium in the inner city of Cleveland for 40 some years until he had to go into a home. And he was that pillar in the community. He would pick me up from kindergarten, and that's where I started working. I would clean the dead feeder fish out of our aquariums. I would change the linen for the gerbils and the hamsters. I would clean up the snakes. I would package rabbit food and gerbil food, and that was my job every day after school. And so he paved the path for me, and he is where I get my drive from. This isn't on my script, but when I came to Iowa State, one of the biggest technology schools, had a great computer campus, had a great engineering program. My grandfather took me to Best Buy and bought me a compact computer, printer, all the cables, everything. I said, "Granddad, they have a lab on campus." I saw it. He said, "I don't want you to have to worry about being on the same level as students that may have a little bit more than you." And so he wanted to make sure I was on an even playing field, and he wanted to set that in motion for me. And that's kind of where I got my drive to continue on with legacies and building paths and helping people. Um, and so I look at the caucus being today, and a political event tonight on MLK Day is a little different. That's something I didn't expect, but you have to look at what that means. It could be a bad day, it could be a good day for people, but you just have to go with that flow, and that's kind of where this weekend has kind of come to fruition for me. Learning what the Rotary Club was and what you all do, and the group of people that come together to build the Rotary is what I had to research before I came and started talking. But now it makes me want to get involved in the Rotary in my area where I live at currently, and anything that I can do with you all when I'm virtual or when I'm in the area representing the Trice Legacy Foundation or Iowa State. So I did want to talk today about growing up. This was told to me as a day on, not a day off. And I don't know if that was a commercial that was on TV, if that was told to us in school. I don't remember where that was, but every MLK, I've always done something, whether that's an MLK march, whether that's gone and volunteering and doing something, but I never really took it as a day off. It's a day off from work, but some places didn't recognize it yet. Arizona didn't recognize it for a while. And so I always wanted to do something to give back. And that's one of the reasons why I agreed to be here today for lunch, and then this evening for the city and the county. And the quote I want to start out with today and from MLK is, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." As we work on shaping the culture of our communities, we must build them with the idea that the first functioning of community is support. This is more than cheering when someone succeeds. It's dropping everything to comfort, pull together in tough times, and not allowing our differences to cause divisions. We started this meeting about Perry, and I heard about Perry. I saw the post about Perry, and I wasn't personally affected, but it's a part of the community. And before you all got on, I was talking about the community that's lacking out in the West Coast, out in Arizona, and the community that I miss here. And to hear you all take a moment of silence to recognize those that we have lost in the past month, past week, those are things that are important to us to build our communities and make stronger communities. When I talk about being driven and not brave, I would not have marched from Selma to Montgomery like Dr. King. I would not have chosen to walk out on that field in 1923 as Jack Trice did. I would not have gone around the deepest and darkest corners like Colin Powell. I am not brave. Being in front of people who don't look like me does not scare me. It drives me. Being driven and brave has similarities, but the outcomes can differ. I may fail at something that I do, but I am not dealing with life or death in my situations. And so I look at what these men before us, especially MLK today, what he was doing, braving the unknown. Colin Powell in military, braving the unknown. Jack, braving the unknown. You know what you know, and you know that you weren't invited. You know that you weren't really, that they didn't want you to be there doing what you were doing at that moment in time. And so for you to go out there knowing the adversity that you're going to face shows the character of these people that we are celebrating. We celebrate the people that have done the good things. It took 55 years for them to erect a statue of Jack. It took 41 years for the MLK National Memorial that we saw at the beginning of this broadcast. We're getting better at recognizing the sacrifices made by those that came before us. And it's about us believing in that, supporting our community, supporting our families. Again, I don't want a statue erected of me, but if you all want to erect one, tell me what pose you want me in, and I'll do that. I'm just here to talk as a Trice, as a relative of a great man who did something before me, to talk about another great man who did something before me. MLK's "I Have a Dream" speech was about jobs and freedom. And as he read, he felt what was inside of the crowd. It became more about fully embracing racial equality. So it changed from what he thought. Just like right before this call, I was watching Pride on my TV, the movie about swimming, about PDR. And then MLK, Malcolm X came on next, and it's still on the TV above me. And I look at this day and I look MLK, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. I look at that and what's there. It just kind of changed the thought that I had as I went through this. But John Trice came to Ames as a student and to play a sport that he loved. He did not articulate his words until he was faced with the empty feeling that he probably had never felt before. Being alone, separated, and unsure, he put pen to paper and was writing down his dream. MLK spoke his dream into existence. Jack was writing his dream down. If Martin Luther King Jr. were alive today, he would begin to see the realization of his dream and the progress made. He would also see that people did not let his death stop that dream, and people were carrying it on in his absence. Jack would see that his dream has not been fully fulfilled, but I'm still doing my part to fulfill his journey. And I'll get deeper into that in my speech tonight. So if you want to hear that part, you can come hear me tonight. But why I do what I do, why I'm here talking about MLK, why I'm here talking about us coming together. I realized in 2020, as Jeff said, about 3 years ago, it was the racial inequality with George Floyd and his death, his murder. And my son said something to me. He was 7 at the time. And that is kind of what sparked this whole thing of me being who I am and knowing that I had to do more than my part, as Jack was doing, as Martin was doing, as all those who came before us was doing. And what it was Black Lives Matter was being plastered all over the TV. And 2020 was a COVID year. So you really didn't have anything to do but watch the news. And it was a lot of things going on. Black Lives Matter, and my 7-year-old being able to read now, Daddy, what's Black Lives Matter? And for me to have to explain that to a 7-year-old kid, with him not really being able to grasp it all, was difficult because I didn't want to have that conversation that early. But it was something that needed to be done. I mean, he was going to realize that and see that at a later point in life anyway. And so that conversation led to another conversation, whereas he wanted a toy. It was around wintertime. He wanted this toy, and it was Ryan's World. And Ryan's World is this little kid who's making buku money from a TV show, selling trinkets and things like that. And I said, buddy, I'm not gonna, go buy those. Those are not put together really well. You're gonna play with three pieces of it. I'm not doing that. You should make your own toys. And then I went to the gym, came back home. My wife said, you need to talk to your son. And he sat there and I said, what's up, buddy? I said, what did you tell mom? Well, you told me to make my own toys, but nobody would buy my toys because I'm Black. A 7-year-old saying that to me broke my heart. So I went to Facebook Live and said, hey, Izzy doesn't think people will buy his toys because he's Black. Will you buy his toys? Buddy, tell him what you said. And he got a little shy, but he saw that people responded and they would buy his toy. And I said, buddy, you can do whatever you want to do. That is what sparked some of that. But the thing that started the foundation and started me on that path was an ex-Iowa State track guy tagged me in a post where someone was comparing and contrasting George Floyd and Jack Trice on a post. And I read the post, I read through every single comment, and I took about a day and a half or so before I responded to that post. And my first line was, please don't ever put Jack Trice and George Floyd in the same sentence together as admirable people. The tragedy for both of these events, Jack was just a Black man at a time where being a Black man was not accepted to be a part of society all the time. George Floyd, wrong place, wrong time, did something wrong for those events to transpire. And the end was the same, but the events that led up to them were different. And so in order to get Jack's name and to really tell his story, because people weren't looking at the story about the sacrifice that he made and how his life was cut short because he couldn't finish the things that he wanted to do. He wanted to go back down south and teach ex-slaves how to sharecrop, how to make money doing what they've been doing for free. He wanted to go back and use what he gained from Ames College, from Iowa State, to help others. That was the kind of person that he was, about doing more than his part. And that is why I started the foundation and started to find a way to give back. And I started with Cleveland because we're both from Cleveland. His high school's there. And I said, what better way to honor him and to start to honor him was be to give back to his high school, to our hometown, and start that way. And that's where this foundation started. And that's where my journey started and where I've got my drive to feel that I am doing the things that would make Jack proud. I am doing the things that would make Martin happy, to see that the dreams of coming together, of community, because I've gotten so much support just because of my name. And all I do is carry the name and have to carry it as well as I can. I make mistakes because we're all human, but it's about doing better every day and taking one more step than you did the day before. How can you do better? How can you be better? And how can you bring everybody in? I look at a couple people on this call. I look at Jeff and I look at Mary. Haven't known Mary Evanson very long, but she's become like a family to me. She knows people I know. When I'm in town, we go get breakfast. I talk to her, not about as being a donor, not about as being a Trice, just, hey, what's going on with this? How can we make this do better? When I see Jeff, I saw Jeff at BYU basketball game and I called him and he couldn't hear me. He was on his phone. He couldn't hear me. And then I text him, Jeff, I'm right across from you. How did you know it was me? Well, I saw your bald head and your cardinal. I saw you stick out in BYU. I knew it was you. Hey, how Peggy, but Jeff and I, like he said, I love Ames. I love Iowa State. I started the chapter in Sacramento. I was the president of the chapter in Columbus when I lived in Columbus. I partnered and tried to start a younger chapter of some groups of ex-Iowa State athletes in Arizona back in the day. But it's about giving back to the community because I started talking about my grandfather from Cleveland. But coming here when I was 18, this is where I became an adult. This is where I grew. And so I feel like this is where my family actually is, friends that have became family, because I spent more time with them. I learned from them and I grew with them. And so when I talk about, the driven spirit, it's about how to do better. And that's all I got for you today. Driven, not brave. But I did want to open up questions because you may have questions for me. I told you a little bit about me. I told you about why I'm here, but I really wanted to have a conversation with everyone because I know there are always questions, things that I may not have hit on, but I want to be able to talk and have a conversation with you.
Wonderful. Normally myself or Katie facilitate, but maybe I'll put Jeff on the spot. Jeff, would you be willing to facilitate the Q&A session, kind of keep an eye on the chat, and I can certainly help, but I'll let you take the floor from here.
Well, let's do it together. But I want to start by having George share a little bit about when did you come into knowledge of Jack and then eventually Iowa State University? What age were you? How did the story get told to you? Give us some insight into how that connection was made.
Yeah, no doubt. So I found out about Jack Trice when I was 8 years old. As I told you, my grandfather is the Trice. And so in 1988, when the statue was created, they flew out Trices to Ames. My grandfather, George Trice, my uncle Nelson, his brother, and then my cousin Chester Jr., which was the son of the other brother. They all came out in 1988. I had chicken pox, so me and my mom could not come out at that time. So that's when I first heard about Jack. Future forward, I did not really hear about Jack after that. I think the next time that I really remember was about 4 months later after that, the next year, the Jet magazine had the article about the 65-year wrong done right. And that was the title of the article in Jet magazine. Stevie Wonder's on the cover. I remember that. But that is where the next time I kind of saw Jack. Future forward going, I played basketball from 7th grade on. I played football starting my freshman year. For my senior year, I was had already committed to going to Michigan, 3.5 hours from home. Girlfriend from high school was going. I was in love, and that's what we were going to do. And my senior year, going in, my football coach always read the paper every morning. He was an English teacher. And I went and stopped in his room across the hall from my English class. And that morning, the Cleveland Plain Dealer had the article that said, East Cleveland native, now name of stadium. And that is where I found out where the article was talking about the stadium was now named Jack Trice Stadium instead of Jack Trice Field. And the story was there. He gave me that article. I went home that day after school, said, "Hey, Ma, are we related to this one?" Because again, that was 10 years later than when initially I heard about Jack. And she said, "Oh, yeah, here's the Jet magazine." She started talking to me. And I called into the school to say, "Hey," left a message. I can't remember where I called. I found a number. I called, left a message. I said, "Hey, my name is George Trice. I think I'm a relative of Jack Trice. I would love to know more about Iowa State." They called me back and said, "You're a first cousin twice removed," because grandfather, mother, myself. And they said, "We would love to have you out." I went to my mom and said, "Mom, I'm going to Iowa." She said, "Not without me." So, that was, I was 17 and in February, and this is part of my speech for the night, Jeff, so you'll hear some of this later. But we came out in February of 1998, and that's when I made the change to come to Iowa State and continue on Jack's legacy.
Now, talk a little bit about how you in Ames, did people know who you were, or did they just associate because of your last name, or did you use your last name a lot?
I never used my last name. I came in when we came in and I was recruited in that February. I was with Tom Hill. I met with Gene Smith. I met with Matt McGettigan, who was strength and conditioning, Dan McCarr. I met everybody on the football team. I stayed with football players for a couple of days when I was getting recruited. When I came in that fall, I never liked using my last name because I had all of the privilege of being a student athlete without having to walk on the field. I can walk in anywhere I wanted to. I can go anywhere and get in. I had the access. I had the same workout plan as the student athletes because I had all those connections. And a lot of people knew who I was because I was on the cover of the Daily or every year. So when I first came in, I was on the cover of the Iowa State Daily. You know, my subsequent years, I also was there, but there was always a story. So somebody always noticed me. And you know, I was a bigger guy, 6'2", 270, and they may have thought I was a player, you know, because I was here. But I never tried to use my name to get the access. People just knew who I was. But that was one of the things, and one of the lessons is I didn't understand the name. I didn't understand kind of the power that the name had. You know, I'll talk about this tonight, but when I came to that game, when I left after they announced me on the screen and we were leaving and I was in the SUV, had the window down, cold February, not as cold as this, but they were clapping and giving me thumbs up and cheering. And I just felt like, man, this is a great place to be. And that was part of the draw to come to Ames and come to Iowa.
George, give us a little insight now that you have seen how Iowa State has handled Jack's name, Jack's legacy. What have we not done that you would like to see done? Or what would you like to see done more that we are doing? Just take us through whatever thoughts you have in that regard.
Yeah, no, I can do that. The 100th anniversary commemorative celebrations, it was a great collective effort. The city, state, athletics, university, even getting on to a proclamation on Capitol Hill, a declaration there. So the things have been done this year for the 100th anniversary. Just like the statue and just like getting renaming, it took a little bit of time. You always want things to move faster than they are. One of the things that I will say is that Jack was a student athlete. This kind of, again, these are the path and these are things, and I talk about this tonight as well. But if you all were to look at the memorial statue, the original statue that of Jack, if you look, in his hand is his letter. On the bench next to him are books, and his football cleats are behind him. He was a student. He was a student first. He was a student. That is who he was. But we recognize him a lot for the football aspect. Athletics kind of, you know, owns the image, the Jack Trice story. Iowa State got lucky to have this story too because Jack's coach came here. If Jack's coach wouldn't have come here, he would have went wherever his coach was because his coach brought 6 players from Cleveland that included Jack to Ames. So someone else could have this story, but we have this story here. Jack is not just a Black History Month topic. Jack is not just a beginning of the football season or when we're doing good conversation. Jack, we have to complete the man. Athletics has the 5 bars and the Ames commemorative, but they can't really say it's Jack Trice all the time because they don't own the name, they don't own the likeness, but that's what it's for. But also from that scholarly piece, ag, vet med, he was animal husbandry. You know, how do we bridge the student and the athlete to make the one person people understand that Jack is a whole? Athletics, I feel, should give back more to the academic piece. I love the fact that we have the Jack Trice Character Award, and that's why I try to partner to donate and raise funds for that one as well as what we're doing. We have the Jack Trice Endowed Scholarship for an athlete. With affirmative action changing, that scholarship in itself has to be renamed. It has to be reworked because it says a Black student, but it can't say a Black student to my knowledge. Those have to change. They can't be set for certain groups. They have to be more generalized. That puts us back to helping the people that I'm trying to help in the group that's underprivileged that I'm trying to help. So we have to find a way, I think, to still honor Jack and what he was trying to do as a whole. The past year has been a great effort. Honoring him every year at the game would be a great start. retiring his jersey. For you all that don't know, this year Jack will be a Hall of Famer twice. So Jack will be in the National Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. That ceremony will be in June in Canton. They will be presenting the family with the red jacket. They do red jackets. But then in October, he will be in the Cleveland High School Hall of Fame for East Tech. They do that every 2 years. And so this year he will be inducted into that. The recognition is getting there. We are starting to get this story out there more. I keep hammering my Iowa Hawkeye friends to say, hey, Jack's more than just Iowa State, support me. But it's about he represents Iowa. He represents something bigger than just here. And we just have to make sure that we are just completing the man. So that's all I want really for people to understand is that he was a student as well. And not just for his accolades on the field, but for what he was doing and who he was as a student.
George, the last comment I'll make, and then I'll go to the questions that are in the chat. As serving on this committee with you, I think some things that really hit me was the fact that Jack was only 21 years of age. And I think people tend to forget that. Secondly, he was married. And so one of the things that I've always wondered is how did Cora May, did your family ever get to really know her past Jack's death or?
Yeah, no, we did not get to know Cora May. They never had any children, and so we never had any connection after Jack passed. Um, my grandfather, who was out here in '88, did not know Jack. My grandfather was born 2 years after Jack died. My grandfather was the youngest of six. And so my Uncle Nelson, who was there, if you look at a census and look at a census back in Cleveland, you'll see Nelson Trice there. So Jack lived with my Uncle Nelson. And so again, he was 5 years older than my grandfather. My Aunt Phyllis was 7 years older. And then my Uncle Chester was 8 years older. So my grandfather, again, didn't meet him, but the brothers and some of the sisters did meet Jack. And so because they had no kids, because they had no family together, that relationship never really took off. I tried to reach out to that side of the family to find out more because she was buried in Youngstown, Ohio, I think, which is about an hour and a half from Cleveland. But yeah, I just never have been able to connect with that side of the family, but don't know much.
I said last, have one more. Talk to us about the cemetery where George is buried or where Jack is buried.
Hiram, Ohio. Hiram, Ohio is about 30 miles away. What's funny about this, you asked me when I knew about Jack and heard about Jack. And from when I was 10 to when I was 14, I went to summer camp in Hiram. Hiram House Camp is where I went for a week to 2 weeks of the summer every year and never knew that the headstone was there. And it's funny when I'll get people that send me, they go on their trips to the Midwest and they go through Cleveland and they um, stop by the headstone. And it was funny. I think it was either it was October or November last year, somewhere around there. My mom went out to the cemetery just to go see the headstone. And there was an Iowa State helmet sitting on Jack's grave. And so she sent me the picture that she had took. You saw her shadow, her hand was on there. And I posted that picture on our social media. And the person who put that there replied with the full picture of them standing next to the headstone. And they were the ones that put that helmet on there. And there's a sticker on there, and they represent Jack Trice there. The only thing that's bad about that is that Cleveland does not do enough to recognize Jack. It happened so long ago. We have Steve Harvey. We have Bone Thugs and Harmony. We have Avant. We have Halle Berry. Those people are alive, and we see them, and they get recognized there. But the city of Cleveland, that's why I hope in the Hall of Fame changes that and embraces that they have a fallen hero that was from their midst.
So, George, in the chat here, someone said, thank you, George, for your presentation and for being with us today. I wonder how the Trice story, legacy, and message is communicated in an ongoing way to current ISU students, and how engaged do you find ISU students to be in keeping the message alive?
I don't think that the story is communicated enough. Like I said, it's a lot during Black History Month. It's a lot during the football season. But for the other 8 months of the year, it's not the forefront. With Jack being on the back on the center of campus, people get to see him, but they're not stopping to see him as if they were going to the stadium, and you go to Auburn and you see Bo Jackson's statue out there. They're not going into the center of campus when they come for a game. So sometimes I think when people come to the stadium, they don't get to see that original piece of history. When I was here, I was on a panel for incoming freshmen. So my sophomore year, I was on a panel. Parents and incoming freshmen would come in. And of course, the first question is, your last name is Trice. Are you related? And that's the question we have. But so that was my way of getting it out there. I also was a star. And I don't say like a football star, but that was the acronym for the field trips that we had through the university. And I would take third graders and fourth graders around. And then I would be the one to talk to them about Jack. I'd take them to the statue and say, this is Jack Trice, and introduce them to it. So those have been done. But for current students, we don't hear about Jack like that because, again, it is really just because the football stadium and it's really the athletics piece is so far away from what they typically do every day. The vet med, animal husbandry, if there was some way to partner and have them to know that Jack was now an alumni of that hall. So now he's an alumni. And that was, if you see pictures of me and Jeff and Toya and my face, I was just looking at one today. My face is long and stoic. It wasn't stoic. I was trying not to cry. And so that's what it was, because that was one of the proudest moments that I've had. And everything that I've done with the foundation, everything that I've done with Jack, was being able to get him honored the way he should have been with his degree, because that was important to him to be able to go further. And so I think we need to do more to keep it alive. We've had students reach out to us and reach out to me, and I've worked with them. And one of the students came and volunteered at our golf event last year, is now doing her master's in Boston, and is still a part of volunteering with us, still trying to help us to build this because she felt that it was necessary. And so I need to find more people that find the story positive, and that's me coming and talking about it. I will be a guest lecturer at Iowa State this fall, or this spring, for Jardine Business, doing entrepreneurial and nonprofit, talking about that. So that is something that I want to do, to get in front of how to start a foundation, but also to tell my story about why we're doing this.
So let's go there next. In terms of your foundation, it's a 501c3.
Mhm.
How does this group learn more about the foundation if they're interested in contributing, or at least making folks aware of it?
Yeah, tricelegacy.org or johnjacktrice.org is the main email or main website. And that is because I've been trying to get the narrative that John is his first name, and getting him recognized as such. We still put Jack on his diploma, but he is John Trice, and John G. Trice, going by Jack. But yes, we are a 501c3, Give Butter, Benevity, Guide Star. We're silver on Guide Star. We are partnering with a lot of different groups. Mid-American has partnered with us, and so again, trying to give back to the community through johnjacktrice.org. Our main fundraisers are the golf event that we have here in Ames. It's at Coldwater the Friday before Father's Day. So if you golf or want to volunteer, that is all on our sites. We are Trice Legacy at everything. We don't have a TikTok video out there yet, I don't think, but we have TikTok, X, IG, Facebook, YouTube. And so you can go see what we're doing. We have a calendar out there if we're doing any events, and if we're going to be in areas for you. But it's not always about just the treasure, because I would love to have your money. But sometimes we just need your time and your connections. And that's what it's about. And as we talked about it, I talked about giving the first scholarship out back to East Tech. So we gave 2 scholarships to Ohio students, East Tech and John Hay. Those are the 2 major inner city schools in Cleveland. And then we gave one to a young man down in Atlanta because we wanted to contribute and go back to the South like Jack wanted to do. So those were our first 3. And as I talked to you earlier about the fact that the story is not big in Cleveland yet. One of the people I still talk to, Gene Smith, is one of the guys I still talk to. I've always revered him, and he's been not a mentor, but a connector for me. And he and I talked because I said, Gene, I'm having a hard time to get Cleveland traction. And he's from Cleveland, so he knows exactly what the story is and where it was. And again, he was here when I was here. And he said, George, you're not going to get that. He said, what you're doing, your best bet is going to be Iowa, maybe Minnesota, maybe Indiana, or states that touch Iowa. And what can you do to give back there to get the story to be bigger? And so that is why we've changed our mission to increase, just like your Rotary scholarship. Our mission and our path is now we are looking to raise money, and we want to give back to students in Iowa or students coming to Iowa school. So whether it's a trade school or a 4-year, whatever that may be, we want to increase the diversity in Iowa of good, upstanding people. And so we want them to come here because, again, I can tell them the story about me packing my car up after my first year here, driving back home to Cleveland, the 10 hours, 700 miles, calling Tom Hill and saying, Tom, I'm not coming back there. 30 minutes later, my mom walking downstairs and said, Boomer, that's my nickname. So now you all have some insight. My nickname is Boomer. In Cleveland, they don't call me George. They call me Boomer. Boomer. The same way you got your A here is the same way you're getting your A back. So pack your car. You got 2 weeks before summer school starts. So get it out your system. You're not going to be in my house without a degree. Okay. 2 weeks later, I'm back on campus getting used to it. So I have a story. I finished, but I have that story. But I had people to support me and be on my butt to do it. And I want to be on people's butt. And that is why when I talk with Mary and the foundation about endowing a scholarship, I didn't want to lose the ability to talk to these students and to help them with what they need. Reggie Hayward, who you may recognize the name, and Marcus Pfizer are 2 of my mentors. They help me with what I'm doing. They mentor some of the students that I work with. They have done the right things with their money. They have done the right things in their community, even though they were an athlete. And again, they can build both those sides of the student of the game and a student in life. And so that is what we're trying to do. And now we are focused on Iowa. And that was the reason of joining the 3 chambers so far, the areas that need us. The Quad Cities is the next one that we're looking at, and Waterloo is going to be the 5th one we want to be a partner with. And that's why we're trying to get back, and I'm trying to move back to Iowa because this is where I feel home is, and this is where I feel I can make a lot of impact.
Are there any additional questions that people have? I don't see any more in the chat.
Karen, it was BYU. It was BYU. And I want to send a shout out to BYU. They actually flew me out to the first game, and I was on their ESPN game day. And when they found out about my foundation, when they were here doing their stories for BYU TV, they donated an all expense paid trip for 2 to the game for my online auction and assigned Steve Young football. So they partnered and jumped right in on it. And so meeting the young man that was in that video, he came to my golf event and we rode around. So it's a lot of footage of us together, but people have been embracing this as they've joined the Big 12 and the Iowa family.
Mason, I'll turn it back to you if you have any questions. Otherwise, we can close.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff and George. Thank you so much. I'm really disappointed I didn't get a chance to do this in person and meet you and hear from you right in front and shake your hand. But what a fantastic story and great mission and vision at the Jack Trice Foundation. And I just dropped it in the chat. If there's George mentioned it, the city of Ames and joining Ames Story County, the Dr. Martin Luther King Foundation, a celebration tonight. If you're able to join, great. You can hear George speak again about the path, and otherwise, if you can't join in person, sounds like there are some online options as well. So I put those in the chat, and look forward to that. So again, really, thank you so much, George, and hopefully this is just a prelude to getting a chance to meet you in person someday, maybe when the weather's a little nicer out. So
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, during the 100th, I think I was here every month. I was here for about a week every month. Jeff got tired of seeing me. I was always around. And now that it's that slowed down, we have a booth at the Iowa Bike Expo next Saturday, not this upcoming Saturday, but we are going to I will be back doing at least 3 days of RAGBRAI and trying to raise funds for me to do that. This year, I led 25 people around who made a commemorative Jack Trice cycling jersey. And so I want to do something again to raise some funds and raise some awareness around the towns in Iowa. And so that's why I've been training on my bicycle and my Peloton, trying to get ready. Toya Younger might be joining me for part of that leg. Mary hasn't committed yet. Everybody else can join as well, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't know if I would commit either. I'm not much of a biker, but that's wonderful. And you mentioned the foundation is 501c3, correct?
Correct.
I know
do
my
it,
company.
and I do want to say one thing. Sorry.
Oh,
This is the love. This is a passion of mine. I work for Nationwide. I just hit my 18th year last week. That's my 9 to 5. I have a 5 and 10 year at home. That's my 5 to 9. This is my passion when I'm sitting on the couch watching Hallmark with my wife. She understands that this is something that I can talk about and I love doing. So, when I travel, she understands, because she's the one that told me to extend my trip, but she understands that this is important and this is important work. So I just want you all to know that everything that comes in, I don't get paid yet. One day I would like to get there, but I don't get paid. Everything goes back to the students and the communities we're trying to help.
That's wonderful. Thank you for saying that. And I was just going to mention that the company that I work for, they do encourage, donations to 501c3s, and a lot of them, including my own, they will match, up to a certain amount. So folks, depending on who you work for, maybe look that up, because if you made a donation, your company may be able to submit it to your company, and they could match and kind of help, double down on the on that goodwill donation. So please think about that. Again, really appreciate your time today, George. What a fantastic story and legacy, and to have you on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is certainly kind of the cherry on top. So I loved what you said about today is a day on, not a day off. And so whatever that means for you, if you can take a moment today, reflect on the life and legacy of Jack Trice and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whether that's a video, an article, hop online tonight, or be there in person if you can, would be fantastic. And Dr. Martin Luther King had a lot of great quotes. But one that I saw that I feel it was just kind of jumped out at me as connection to Rotary values, right? And who we're about, service above self. Dr. Martin Luther King said this to an audience in Montgomery, Alabama in 1957. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? So with that, let's join me as we recite the 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you again.